we have the mid-season 19 patch for Overwatch 2 with 5v5 changes and their first 6v6 balance patch in a long time, and Stadium, of course. My name is KarQ, and remember, I'm your patch notes guy, no longer the tips and tricks guy, really. And remember to share this with your friends because they'll inevitably ask you who got buffed or nerfed this patch. Let's begin. All right, so let's cover the 5v5 changes first for the base game. For D.VA's minor perk, Extended Booster, the boosters will now deal an additional 100% damage. So in other words, the base damage is 25, it doubles it to 50. For Hazard, they're just tuning his base ability. First, we have Spike Guard. It no longer prevents critical damage, so he can now be headshot when he's holding it down. So that is a big nerf. For Violent Leap, the cooldown will be reduced from 6 seconds to 5.5 seconds, so I guess a minor compensatory buff here. The devs comment that with Hazard's block now less reliable against burst damage, this change increases his mobility, allowing him to reposition and engage more effectively. For ORISA's Fortify ability and Terra Surge, her ultimate, remember her Terra Surge gives her a free Fortify, and now only prevents headshot critical damage specifically and not forced critical hits. The dev comments will explain further. They say that alongside Hazard's updates, these adjustments address specific interactions that were previously mitigated by these defensive abilities, such as MAUGA's Ignited critical damage and Rein's Earth Shatter, because Rein can crit if you get up close to his Shatter, which does double damage, interestingly enough. For RAMATTRA, his base health is being increased by 25, so for the roll Q 5v5, he is going from 500 to 525. For his Relentless Form perk, it no longer has half effectiveness while in Annihilation, his ultimate. The devs comment that previous changes led to a healthier overall playstyle for RAMATTRA, but he could feel too fragile in certain matchups, so increasing his base health improves survivability in both forms. For Wrecking Ball, they're reducing his armor by 50. The base armor will be reduced from 175 to 125. The devs comment that Wrecking Ball can be extremely difficult to punish due to his high health pool and mobility, especially without strong crowd control. Reducing his base armor lowers overall survivability while rewarding effective adaptive shield usage. For Zarya's Energy Converter perk, the energy gain from those secondary fires will be reduced from 3 to 2. For ASHE, the Viper, which is her weapon, the secondary fire fall-off range is going to be rescaled from 30 to 50 meters to 40 to 60 meters. That's a buff. That means your damage doesn't start falling off till the target is farther away, meaning you do more damage on average for closer to mid-range targets. The devs comment that increasing Ashe's fall-off range allows her to perform more consistently at her intended mid to long-range distances. For CASSIDY, his flashbang hinder duration is getting buffed from 0.9 seconds to 1.2 seconds. The devs comment that flashbang's short hinder duration could feel difficult to capitalize on. This slight increase gives CASSIDY players a more reliable window to follow up when landing a flashbang. For Echo, her flight, the movement acceleration in the air will be increased by 100% when changing directions while flight is active. The devs comment that Echo can struggle to safely position within her effective range. Increasing her aerial acceleration during flight gives her more control when engaging or escaping. For Genji's Shuriken projectile size, that's actually been cut in half. The size is reduced from 0.1 to 0.05, so you have to be a lot more precise. This is a nerf. For Mei's primary fire, the damage per second will be increased from 100 to 110. The devs comment that this damage ensures that Mei's primary fire remains the consistent choice in close-range duels. For SOJOURN, she's getting a buff to her Disruptor Shot where the damage per second is increased from 80 to 90, and the projectile speed is increased from 30 to 40. The maximum travel duration will be reduced from 1 to 0.75 seconds to compensate. The devs comment that these adjustments make Disruptor Shot easier to land and more reliable without increasing its travel distance. For Sombra's Encrypted Upload Minor perk, the stealth duration on a successful hack will be increased from 2 to 3 seconds. For her Healthy Hacker perk, the overhealth granted is increased from 50 to 75, the overhealth degeneration will be increased from 10 to 25, and the time before the overhealth degeneration is increased from 6 to 10 seconds. The packs can now be picked up while she is at full overhealth to reset that degeneration timer. The devs comment that Healthy Hacker has struggled to provide consistent value as a result of its short active window. These adjustments extend its effectiveness and offer more opportunities to benefit from the perk, even when combat occurs away from health packs. For Tracer's Pulse Pistols, the projectile size has been reduced by 0.04 meters. An overall nerf, it's going to be a little less forgiving. Now on to supports. For Brig's Repair Pack, the cooldown will be reduced from 5.5 to 5 seconds. The devs comment that Brig's healing output can sometimes feel limited compared to the other supports. Now, reducing Repair Pack's cooldown provides more consistent healing across all situations. For Juno's glide boost, the movement acceleration in the air is increased by 50% when changing direction while glide boost is active. The devs comment that this partial reversion to Juno's previous air strafing makes her movement more responsive without making her overly evasive to fight against. For KIRIKO, her ultimate cost will be decreased by 8%. The devs comment that KIRIKO's ult remains one of the most powerful in the game because of its large area and the value it provides to her team. Increasing its cost brings its time to earn more in line with its impact. For LIFEWEAVER, they're shrinking his model and hitbox size by 8%. For the Healing Blossom and Thorn Volley, because they're bound on the same button, the automatic reload time for the inactive weapon when you swap between them is reduced from 2.5 to 2 seconds. The time between weapon swaps will be reduced from 0.25 seconds to 0.125 seconds. The devs comment that LIFEWEAVER's larger model made him easier to hit than most supports. Now, with his lower health pool, they're referencing how he lost 25 HP, I think, in the last season or two. This hitbox reduction offsets that loss in survivability, while weapon swap improvements make his gameplay smoother and more responsive. All right, now on to the 6v6 balance patch. Yes, they're actually patching this version of the game. One thing we need to note, and the devs commented here, is that most changes made to 5v5 are actually going to be reflected in 6v6 as well. So any of the base kit changes in 5v5 that we mentioned before are automatically used in 6v6, unless otherwise noted. Now, this patch aims to maintain consistent balance between the two modes while addressing outliers, particularly amongst tanks. Heroes that currently feel the strongest or weakest in 6v6 have been adjusted to ensure a more balanced experience. So from the top, D.VA's health will be reduced from 350 to 300, and the defense matrix recharge rate will be reduced by 15%. For DOOMFIST's passive, the best defense, the overhealth gain per target is reduced from 35 to 25 HP, and for the power block, the amount of damage to gain the empowered punch will be increased from 100 to 120. For JUNKRAT Queen, her base health will be increased from 425 to 450. For her Adrenaline Rush, the self-healing from wounds, the damage modifier or multiplier scalar will be increased from 1.5x to 1.7x, so you're healing a lot more. For MAUGA's Cardiac Overdrive, the cooldown will be reduced from 17 to 15 seconds. For Ryan's Barrier Field, the shield will be increased from 1500 to 1800. For Winston's Jump Pack, the cooldown will be reduced from 6 seconds to 5 seconds. And for Wrecking Ball, his base health will be reduced from 500 to 475, so he loses 25 HP here. And for his Adaptive Shield ability, the overhealth gained per target is reduced from 75 to 50. And finally, for ZENYATTA, the Orb of Discord now has a cooldown per target. Now for Stadium, we have a giant list of general changes and then some hero-specific ones. Big one here is that drafts have been updated to a blind pick system, so both players pick at the same time, then their pick is revealed together. Draft mode automatically assigns tanks to the 5th slot too. The rest of these are mostly just quality of life changes, including some Stadium combat text changes. You can read the rest of them on your screen now, so let's move on to the hero-specific changes. Hazard has been a menace in Stadium, so they're going to be nerfing the off-the-wall power. The damage is going to be decreased from 80 to 60, and then for the Fortress power, the damage will be decreased from 40 to 25. For ORISA, she's getting a couple of buffs to some of her items. For the Enhanced Target Sensors, which is a rare weapon hero item, they've now added the 10% attack speed and 5% weapon power stat to it. For the Oladel Copter Blades epic ability item, they have added 15% weapon power to it, and the cost is decreased from 12k to 10k. For Efi's Theorem, which is an epic ability hero item, they added plus 25 armor. And for the Hologram Helmet, the epic survival hero item, the cost is decreased from 10,000 to 9,000. For Sojourn's Hard Stuck power, the damage reduction decreased is down from 50% to 25%. For the Fine-Tuned Thrusters power, the damage reduction is up from 25% to 35%. For the Zoom 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 power, the attack speed is going to be increased from 25% to 35%, and the weapon lifesteal is going to be increased from 50% to 100%. The Experimental Tech power, the slow is going to be increased from 15% to 25%, and the Railgun charge will be increased from 33% to 50%. For Liao's Logistics Data, the epic ability hero item, the cost is decreased from 11,000 to 10,000. For the Energy Leech rare ability hero item, the cost is decreased from 5,000 to 4,000. For Freya, the Volley à Deux power, the spread of the additional bolts is going to be reduced by 60%. And now the additional bolts will fire every 3rd shot, which is down from every 5th shot. For the Peak Performance power, they added 20% increased updraft height. For the Forager power, the max life per hit is going to be increased from 5% to 8%. For the Cyclone power, they've added 25% reduced explosion damage from an extra take aim bolt. For the Windwalker Boots rare ability hero item, they've added a new description for it which says take aim bolt explosion damage will now reduce your updraft cooldown by 1 second. And now they've removed that you get 20% updraft height, so that's old and gone. They've also added 5% ability power to it. They removed the 5% cooldown reduction. For the Arrowweave Cloak rare survival hero item, they've added a new text that says restores 10% max ammo every 1 second while the momentum is slowed by take aim. For Junkrat's Hop Boom power, the concussion mine damage upon landing after detonating concussion mine on yourself is increased to 20% reduced effectiveness, which is up from the 30% reduced effectiveness. For the Trap 2 Esquire power, they removed the arming time to spawn a mini steel trap, and now there's a maximum number of mini steel traps, which is increased from 2 to 5. For the Rainin Lead power, the frequency is going to be increased from 0.3 seconds to every 0.25 seconds. For his Spiked Gloves rare weapon hero item, the cost is decreased from 4,500 to 4,000. For the Rat Pack rare ability hero item, the ability power is increased from 5% to 10%, and the Steel Trap health is increased from 50% to 100%. For Jameson's Jumpers, which is an epic ability hero item, they've added that detonating the conch mine on yourself will reduce the cooldown of it by 15%. They've removed the 20% concussion mine knockback distance from it, and they've added 25 health to it. For the Lithium Alloy epic ability hero item, the cost is decreased from 10,000 to 9,500. They've added 10% ability power to it as well. For the Charged Champa's epic ability hero item, the ult charge gained now triggers on all ability damage instead of just the total mayhem damage. And for the Thermal Trap rare survival hero item, the cost is decreased from 4,000 to 3,750. For the Refreshing Radiation epic survival hero item, the cost is decreased from 10,000 to 9,000, and the max life overhealth is increased from 5% to 8%, and the overhealth duration is increased from 3 seconds to 5 seconds. For Juno, the Medicinal Missiles power now heals an extra 30 health on a pulsar hit. And then finally for Brig's Whirl Whip power, the bonus damage on the 360 rocket flail swing will be increased from 100% to 125%. And for the Righteous Cleave power, the healing on the next rocket flail swing will be increased from 100% to 125% of the damage dealt.